From our 22 News Broadcast Center, this is 22 News in Focus.
Good evening and welcome to 22 News in Focus. I'm Nick Oresco. A report by the International Association of Police Chiefs has found that police departments across the country are facing multiple challenges in finding new recruits. A combination of a shortage of people applying, weeding out unqualified applicants, and strong competition for recruits is making it hard for the thousands of law enforcement agencies to fill those openings. The national public image toward policing may have an impact on people looking at a career in law enforcement. And it's not just police departments. Fire departments are struggling to fill their ranks as well. Today on 22 News in Focus, we'll be looking at how police and fire departments in our state are working to fill their rosters and support their communities. Joining me first to discuss the policing situation are Northampton Police Chief Jody Casper and Amherst Police Chief Scott Livingstone. Thank you both for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks for having us.
Of course. So let's start off with the communities where you guys serve. They're both unique in that they have a large population of college students. We'll start with Chief Livingstone on that. How many patrolmen and officers are in your department in Amherst?
So, Nick, we're currently budgeted at 46 officers. Currently, we have 4 officers in the academy and 2 additional openings. So, we're down relatively to small numbers. Right around 40 officers currently doing the job. It certainly adds stress to the officers. Most time officers are taking off. It needs to be filled with overtime, and their officers are finding it more difficult to get time off in general.
Chief Casper, is that the same for you in Northampton, what you guys are seeing over there?
Yes, so we have our full staffing would be about 60 officers. We were originally staffed for 65 prior to defunding, and then we were defunded and lost 5 positions. So we are funded for 60, and while we currently have all those positions technically filled right now, about 11 of them are not available. They're either in training or they're injured, so that makes it difficult. People often don't factor that in when they think about some of the staffing challenges. So
more specifically in that range, how many are foot patrol and how many patrol on bicycles? We'll start with you again.
So in Amherst, for bike and foot patrol, typically that would happen in the spring and fall semesters when we're the busiest, when the students are in session, and when we do have foot and bicycle patrol officers in the downtown area predominantly, it's done with overtime. So we no longer have the ability to permanently assign an officer to those responsibilities.
Chief Casper?
Yes, it's the same for us. We used to have someone permanently assigned to Main Street, actually 24 hours a day in the downtown area, but just due to staffing, we have not been able to maintain that. And like Chief Livingstone, our bike patrol just runs from spring to fall. So in the spring and fall time, if staffing permits, we're able to get our bike officers out there.
Drugs, guns, gangs, theft, homelessness are universal in most communities. Have you seen an increase or decrease in crime, and which crimes are most prevalent right now? And Chief, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so in Amherst, not so much a gun issue. Certainly drugs is an issue in every community. Typically in Amherst, it's more drug-related, homelessness issues for sure. That's we've seen a dramatic increase in the homelessness issue, and the mental health calls are really off the roof, specific to Amherst.
What do you think is contributing to that?
I think that there's a breakdown at the state level and at the national level dealing with individuals with homelessness, with mental health issues. There just isn't an avenue to get these individuals some long-term assistance because we typically will deal with the same individuals day in and day out. And the difference is now that number of those individuals we're dealing with mental health issues and homelessness issues is consistently larger than it used to be.
Chief Casper, same question, and also, do you think the pandemic has put a strain on what you're seeing out on the streets?
Yeah, so our numbers definitely dipped down in 2020 and 21, and that was because of COVID. We just didn't, a lot of things were closed, restaurants, businesses, everything was closed, drivers were home, a lot of people were working remotely. So we did see a lot of our call volume and crimes drop down, but in 22, we've noticed those have started to come back up. So that's the trend that we're seeing. Much like Amherst, ours are mostly crimes that have to do with larcenies and property crimes more than violent crimes. I think both our communities are very safe communities, and like the chief mentioned, in his community, we have faced very similar challenges with trying to find services for people who are struggling with addiction or who are in crisis.
Now, while Amherst is considered a small town, the population there grows by over 20,000 during the school year. It's also a very diverse population. People from all over the world attend UMass Amherst and Hampshire colleges, and some are away from home for the first time there. What are some of the issues that your departments have prepared for when dealing with this annual increase in students? And Chief Livingstone, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, immediately when the students return in late August, some of the more minor issues we deal with are what we call our quality of life issues, disturbances, noise disturbances, large outdoor drinking events, house breaks. Typically the students are the victims of those types of things when they return. So smaller issues on a scale of serious crime, but certainly events that take resources away from our ability to do our job effectively. So, a lot of disturbances, a lot of noise complaints, assaults, and in the more serious category, our sexual assaults obviously go up, our serious assaults in general as well.
Chief Casper, Northampton also has some colleges as well, and an increase in students, especially in the fall and spring. How does your department prepare for that influx?
Yeah, our Smith College is in Northampton. We have a little bit of a different experience, a little bit smaller than UMass, so it's just a little bit. And honestly, it's a much more close community. A lot of the students live on campus, a little bit different from UMass Amherst as well. So we see increases in foot traffic in the downtown area, increases in vehicle traffic. We have a really great partnership with public safety up at Smith College, so they handle a lot of those sorts of services up there, but certainly we get calls to assist as well.
I'm curious, what was it like during the pandemic when a lot of these schools were shut down? Did you see fewer crimes and situations going on because there were fewer students in those cities?
Yeah, without a doubt. People just were not out. The restaurants were not open, the bars were not open, people were not out traveling about. Little things like impaired driving was nil and no issues whatsoever. It's just people were remaining home, and it was certainly an easier time for policing for certain aspects of our profession.
I'm sure it was weird to see, too. No one out on the street.
It was definitely odd. Our biggest concern at that point, especially for the downtown area, was keeping an eye on the businesses,
right.
For break-ins and that sort of thing.
All right, what does a police chief look for when interviewing officers? We'll find out after the break. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about the training and recruitment of police officers in our region with Northampton Police Chief Jody Casper and Amherst Police Chief Scott Livingstone. We've noticed, obviously, throughout the last couple of years or so that it has been difficult for police departments, not only here in Western Massachusetts, across the state, but also across the nation, to fill those positions. What kind of initiatives do you and other chiefs across the state do to recruit applicants? And Chief Livingstone, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so there's no question about it. The market for police officers is very competitive, and it's nationwide. We are seeing areas where typically if we had openings, we would get 200 to 300 applicants for positions pre-COVID days, and now we're seeing 20 applicants. So the competition is out there. I don't know of an agency that isn't hiring at some point over the calendar year, and it makes it much more difficult to recruit. I think we all follow similar paths on what we do for recruiting. We're out there on the social media sites. We attend college fairs, interact with other police chiefs across the country that may have officers that want to leave their area and become police officers in different parts of the country and or the region, being the New England region. So, there's just a lot of communication going on between area police agencies for sure.
Chief Casper, one town over from Amherst, but I'm sure you guys are seeing the same thing.
Yes, without a doubt. The number of applications we get each year has gone down dramatically, and we may get maybe 50 applications in a year. So what we've noticed is that recruiting has transitioned to being a lot more proactive, definitely, and a lot more personal, honestly. We talk to a lot of people about why they applied, and oftentimes the answer is, well, I talked to this officer in this event, whether it was at a college fair or some other venue, and they were encouraged to apply. So we know that all of our officers, that is how we're bringing people into the department. So we focus a lot on that, on talking about people, encouraging people to apply to the department.
How do you promote diversity so that your department reflects the community that it serves?
Yeah, so there isn't a chief out there that I know that isn't looking for an agency that's representative of their community. And it's something that we're all striving to do a better job at. You know, you reach out to community members. We happen to have had successes in the past. We do an annual kids camp, and it's specifically designated for junior high school kids, and we've hired from that kids that have attended our camp, and it's for kids who were less privileged. So that's one area of success we've had, recruiting BIPOC community members and things of that nature. So you really need to think outside the box. You know, things that have happened or worked in the past are just not working now.
Chief Casper?
Yeah, agreed. We're doing many of the same things. One thing that maybe is a little bit different is we did join the 30 by 30 initiative, which it's an initiative right now that's going on trying to have police departments have 30% of their new student officers that are entering the academy be female by 2030, so hence the 30 by 30. We've actually been pretty successful in that. Our department right now is 20% female, but we're still working on all those other areas. You know, we really would like to see more diversity in our department, but it definitely is a challenge.
Are there some incentives that the departments are offering to maybe help get some applicants in?
You know, I think from our agency, we haven't changed a lot on the incentive end of it, but I do, I've read up in police chief magazines and other parts of the country where they're actually offering financial incentives where, you know, if you come to work for us, there's a $5,000 incentive. If you stay for 5 years, there's $10,000 incentives. So people have started to, again, think outside the box of other mechanisms to get people to be interested in their agency. You know, it used to be the big draw was, all right, who's paying the most? And the newer breed of individuals who are looking to become police officers, a lot of them are more concerned about time off and being able to get time off, and the monetary factor isn't as important as it used to be, quite surprisingly.
Are you doing something similar in Northampton?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're nationally seeing that trend of hiring bonuses, and I'm actually kind of glad that we haven't embraced that around here. It's a strange system where you end up paying people who don't work for you yet, and all your existing employees who are staying with you and didn't get hiring bonuses are still there. And I completely understand why some agencies would be gravitating toward that, but out here we haven't started that yet. You know, we're focused on just having a good work environment and trying to have people come into the work environment, take good care of them while they're there. So we don't have any really creative incentives, but certainly shift scheduling is something that I'm seeing a lot in a lot of departments. Actually, I think I just read today, and you may have seen that, Chief, that I think it was Seattle that's switching over to a 4 and 3 versus a 4 and 2. And days off, so 4 days on, 2 days off, 4 days on, 3 days off. So people are definitely looking at creative scheduling in order to allow that time off. Without a doubt, new people we're looking at are really valuing their time off, and that we want to make sure we can give them that. Of course, with a lot of vacancies, it's very challenging to do, so that's hard to meet.
And I'm sure there's a lot that goes into this application process. What are you looking for specifically for a police officer to help make a final decision for that position? Is there something specific that you're looking for?
You know, I don't know if there's something very specific, because every individual seems to bring something different. And that's what you want in an agency, right? You want diversity, not just in the makeup of male, female, BIPOC community or police officers, but somebody has different interest. You know, we require that an individual either has their degree or is working towards a degree. It used to be exclusively officers who are just in the law enforcement field. Now we're accepting those who are majoring in psychology and sociology or have political science majors. So, you know, you're really just looking for an individual you feel is comfortable in your community, who will work hard for you and get to become a part of that community that they're going to be working for.
Chief?
Yeah, we've really transitioned in what we're looking at as far as a work history. I think 25 years ago, we used to look at people who were part-time officers, former military, security, all those sorts of things. And now we actually have transitioned to kind of looking at people who have customer service experience. So we've hired a couple of people who have worked in banking or other sorts of customer service, because at the end of the day, we work in a customer service industry. So, you know, hard workers, enthusiastic, optimistic, and a good customer service history is a great place for us to start. And honestly, if anyone's thinking of applying, because right? Here we are talking about
We
it.
need 'em,
I
right?
don't know if you're looking, but anyone who is, you really don't need to have a background in policing at all. You don't need to have a criminal justice degree. I think we've expanded what we're looking at with candidates. And if there's just someone who has love of community, is a problem solver, wants to give back to their community, those are the people that we're looking for.
Which I think not a lot of people understand that. I think some people are looking for specific things of a police officer, but as you mentioned, it's not just, an officer perspective or anything. It's anyone who can do the job.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're definitely looking for community-oriented people who want to be part of a community and want to do the job for the right reasons.
All right, we'll continue our conversation when we return. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about issues facing police departments in our region. Policing has changed a lot in recent years. There has been much public discussion about police reform. When the public talks to you about police reform, what do they want to see? And Police Chief Livingstone, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious to what we've been told by our community members is they want to see transparency and they want to see accountability. When things do go wrong in policing, they want officers to be held accountable, and they want the transparency aspect of it so that there aren't long periods of time between decisions that are being made or that need to be made when things go wrong. I point to the recent incident and death and murder in Memphis, Tennessee, and I think that police chief handled things exactly the way the community wants. They were very quick to release information, and they held people accountable.
Chief Casper?
I couldn't agree more. Transparency, accountability, and I think also probably a willingness to explore potential new approaches to public safety issues in a community. And certainly we've had those tough conversations in our community talking about alternative responders. Who is the best person to go to a call? Because the reality is police officers really do handle a lot of different calls. And over the years, the types of calls we handle have really increased because we're always on. So people say, oh, send the police, So I think there's a re-looking at that to try to determine what other services might be appropriate to send to assist someone.
Now, many departments are moving toward more community policing with community events featuring police and weekly updates and events featuring those police departments in public meetings. What types of community outreach have been found effective for your departments?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that we have an annual event where we have a kids week and it's basically a kids camp. We certainly have internship programs so that community can come in. Pre-COVID, we've done community academies for the citizens to come in and understand exactly what it is we do as agencies. Some of the things we're talking about doing is being more specific at community events, at local, maybe a very specific apartment complex where they may have had issues, whether it be an issue with drugs or just noise disturbances. The community that I work in, they want the officers out there talking about the problems they're dealing with, and they want to see what our response is going to be to answer some of their concerns.
What are you doing, Chief Casper, in Northampton?
So right now we actually have one of my favorite community programs running, which is our Community Police Academy, our Citizen Police Academy, which is a time when we invite members of the community to come in and sit in kind of a classroom environment, and they get to meet 25 of our staff members talking about all different sorts of topics, and we get to listen to them and hear their concerns and answer their questions. That is really a fantastic program, and many of the graduates over the last decade or so, are still people who we stay in contact with and who reach out to us. So that's one of my personal favorites. I think we have a lot of good opportunities to get out and chat with people, but I like how it's a long-standing commitment. It's a multi-week program, and it's been great.
Now, you both have been in this industry for quite a few years. You're mentioning over 40 years for you, Chief. A lot has changed, obviously, police reform we're talking about, but what other things have you seen change over the years since when you first started to this year, 2023?
Yeah, I think, going all the way back to the 1980 when I began, the biggest change that I've noticed, and it's for the positive, it's for the good thing, is just the sheer amount and diversity of the training that the police officers are receiving now. It used to be, when I went to the police academy, it was very paramilitary. You certainly learned the constitutional law, motor vehicle law, on all those types of things. But now, now we're learning about cultures. We're learning about, issues of other individuals' cultural backgrounds, dealing with just specific instances of mental health awareness, and how to deal with individuals who are in crisis. We have crisis intervention teams on our department. I would have never seen that 30 years ago. So we're being very responsive to what the community wants. There's still a lot we can be doing. In Amherst, we've actually begun our CREST responders, who are individual citizens who will be responding to non-emergency type calls, and that would have been unheard of years ago. And we work very closely with the group, our CREST responders, and it's been, so far in its early stages, just a wonderful experience.
Chief Casper, you haven't been in the industry as long as Police Chief Livingstone, but I'm sure you've also seen some changes over the years. What kinds of things have you seen? Are they for the better?
Oh, absolutely for the better. The two things that come to mind the most to me are really, I think, just seeing the field become more professionalized and standardized. We're an accredited department. I know Amherst is as well. So that's established best practices that are out there that everyone agrees this is the way things should be, and we're all kind of getting on board with that. So I've definitely seen that. And then without a doubt, technology. I mean, we've just seen technology enter into how we can do our work. We have a computer in every car. When I started, we didn't have that, right? So those sorts of things, but also in crimes and investigations too. It's really changed the way that we do that work. The types of things that we're responding to are more likely to involve things that involve cell phones, for instance, or laptop computers or whatever else. So those are the two that I really have seen significant changes over my short career in comparison to Chief Livingstone's.
Didn't want to put you on the spot.
I take a lot of ribbon, don't worry.
But of course, you mentioned technology. It's not in just law enforcement, it's everywhere. I mean, we're in this new studio too with even more technology, and our field is also advancing as well. So it's a good point that you bring up. We'll have some final words when we come back. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we've been talking about issues facing police departments with Northampton Police Chief Jody Casper and Amherst Police Chief Scott Livingstone. Thank you both for providing this insightful information today. Anything else that you want to add before we leave here?
Jody?
I think in general, it's a fantastic career still, and a career that I've loved for my 25 years, and we've seen it change quite a bit, and it's come under a lot of scrutiny lately, and we certainly understand why. I understand why, but it's still a career that I love, and still a really important part of a community.
You got about 20 seconds.
Yeah, I would just add, specific to police reform, I think there's a myth out there that police chiefs and police agencies are resistant to the police reform package, and I don't think they're anything further from the truth. I think it was long overdue. I know chiefs are welcoming that ability to have officers more professionalize the profession, as we say, and I think it's going to be a good thing in the long run.
All right, thank you both. And in the next half hour, we'll be looking at concerns of fire departments across the state. If you missed any of this, you can watch it in full at wwlp.com. Thank you for watching.
From our 22 News Broadcast Center, this is 22 News in Focus.
Good afternoon and welcome to 22 News in Focus. I'm Nick Oresco. In our previous program, we looked at issues facing police departments in our region and statewide. Now we turn to fire departments. There are 363 registered fire departments in Massachusetts. They are a combination of full-time, on-call, and volunteer. And just like police, there is a shortage of firefighters. In communities that depend on volunteers, the shortage could result in larger property damage and even deaths, and greater dependence on other departments. Joining me now to discuss firefighting in our region is Shrewsbury Fire Chief Jim Vona, who is also the president of the Fire Chiefs Association of Massachusetts. Jim, thank you for being on the program today.
Thank you very much, Nick, for having me.
Of course. So we tell our viewers about your department. If you can talk to us about what you see on a daily basis over in Shrewsbury. On-call volunteers, full staff, what do you guys see over there?
Okay, we're a combination department. The majority of our firefighters are full-time. We have 43 full-time personnel, uniform personnel, and we're in the process of adding 4 more because of the town growing. We're almost 40,000 people now.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Is that you or me? Sorry.
Oh, it's you. Go ahead. Oh, you're good.
Okay. So basically, the town keeps growing. They keep doing a lot of building, and we're adding personnel, and as time goes on, we find it difficult, a little bit more difficult to find personnel than we have in the past, especially when we try to find a diverse personnel. The fire service is heavily male and white male, so we're working to try to have diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout our whole town, but we're having a hard time finding folks that actually want to try the profession. So.
How much has the town grown over the years? You said it's now up to 40,000?
Yeah, it's high 30s right
Okay.
now, and it'll probably pass 40,000 in the next couple of years. I grew up in the town. I've been over 50 years in the town, and the town I grew up in was roughly around 20,000 people, so it's nearly doubled in size since I was a kid.
Now, what type of fire apparatuses does your department have?
Well, we have 6 engines, a ladder truck. We have 2 vehicles that are capable of going to brush fires. We also have a hovercraft because we have a large Lake Quinsigamon, which borders Shrewsbury and Worcester. And we have a rib craft boat too, because we have a lot of activity on the lake, especially in the summer, but also you have a lot of ice fishermen and things like that as well. So.
Now, you are in a rural town just east of Worcester, but you did say your town is growing. About how many calls do you respond to each year?
We do about 4,500 emergency calls a year. About 5% or so is related to fire. About 70% is related to emergency medical calls and car accidents.
Now, as the president of the Fire Chiefs Association, chiefs across the state come to you about their concerns. What are some of the biggest challenges in overseeing a rural department?
The rural department's having a hard time recruiting and finding people to work there, not just firefighters. They're having a hard time finding fire chiefs at times, and we're finding now that you'll have a fire chief in one small community that also ends up becoming a fire chief in a second small community nearby because they just don't have anyone either qualified or interested in taking the job. So,
what are the concerns of chiefs from the urban areas?
Diversifying their workforce is a big one. Getting folks interested in trying the fire department as a job. Traditionally, you've seen a lot of white males on the fire trucks, and folks don't feel like maybe they'd be welcome there, which is really not the case. But it's just they don't feel like they don't look like the prototypical firefighter. We'd also like to have more females in the fire service as well, and we're having a hard time finding enough females actually to work as well. So,
are you at the department trying to maybe help diversify your department in some ways, maybe some programs or offering some type of initiatives to help get more in?
Yeah, we are a civil service department, so you have to take the test, and we've reached out to civil service with they've made us flyers that we can put on social media to try to recruit folks. I have a hard time in my own town because we have a high Asian Indian population, but a lot of those folks that we're friends with, they're doctors and engineers and own businesses in town, and their children are going to school to become doctors and medical professionals and engineers, and it's hard to lure them into a field that is, really, if you're from India. My daughter's boyfriend's Indian, and he's helped explain these things to me. It's not really looked upon, police and fire aren't really looked upon as like the types of jobs that successful Indian folks would want to take. And we're trying to change that mentality. And we go to the India Center, and we've met with a lot of folks on there, and they're like, it's going to take a couple generations, because, the culture hasn't assimilated fully to American culture, I guess. So,
what are the critical issues facing fire service today? Sometimes there's a big fire or other incident where the local department may need to ask for help? What is mutual aid, and how do you deal with that?
Where mutual aid was established, I think back in the 1970s, it became law. Where if a fire department had a big fire, they needed more help, the next town would come over. I brought a little example. We have this, it's called a 10-alarm run card. So if we have a working fire, something small, we would recall our personnel. We usually have 10 people on staff during the day. And but if we have a fire, Northborough and Westborough, our contiguous communities, would come over right away. If I have a really big fire, we call Worcester, and they send plenty of help over as well.
Right.
But all the towns depend on each other now because you just don't have enough folks on staff to handle a big event.
Right. Well, what's being done to help departments recruit and retain personnel, we'll find out when we come back. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about issues facing fire departments in Massachusetts with President of the Fire Chiefs Association of Massachusetts, Shrewsbury Fire Chief Jim Vona. Let's take a look at recruitment and retention of personnel. Why do you think there's such a shortage of people looking to get into the profession of firefighting?
It's a little bit hard to say. I think after COVID and the pandemic, a lot of folks that were, a lot of the work that we do is medical work, and I think there's a bit of a fear there that you're exposing yourself all the time to viruses and, just basically all the medical issues that are out there right now. We see them on a daily basis. And like I said, 70% of what we do is mostly related to medical calls. My own son, youngest, I would have loved to be a firefighter, but he doesn't like blood. A lot of people don't like blood. But I think it's become a little bit more difficult since the pandemic. I think we lost a lot of paramedics and EMTs during that period, and a lot of those folks are also firefighters. People retired, and there was just less people looking to get into public service after that.
What kinds of innovations are you and other chiefs across the state doing to recruit and retain applicants?
Well, I know one of the things Boston Fire has done is they started a cadet program where they, start with kids in high school, 15, 16 years old, start exposing them to the job, how you can help your community. We all preach it's the best job in the world. Most firefighters don't want to ever do anything else. They love the job. But we got to get the message out there. We also got to market ourselves better. There's like Explorer programs that they have in a lot of suburban areas, which is very similar to the cadet programs, where you just have younger folks working to support the fire department and learn about. I've actually had interns from the high school come and work for a semester. Basically, their last year of their senior year, if they've met all the qualifications to graduate, they just come and they help us at the fire department. And actually, my last intern is starting July 1st for us, so as a full-timer. So
some good news, right?
Yeah, it's great. It's great. He's a great guy, and we're looking forward to bringing him aboard.
Now, I asked the police department this in the last half hour. Do you guys have any incentives for applicants to get them maybe more interested in the field?
I know we offer educational incentives for college degrees, especially if they're college degrees related to the field of fire science. So we encourage any folks that are going to the schools for fire science to put their names in. They're tailor-made for us. If we know guys or gals that are paramedics, the biggest problem right now is there's not enough paramedics to basically staff the ambulances, either private or as fire departments. So, recruiting, going to the junior colleges that teach these courses, try to steer the people that are taking the classes to us.
Now, what are you looking for in a recruit, and what helps you make a final decision and offer someone a position, specifically your department?
I say I look for two things. I look for attitude, a really good attitude, wanting to do the job and serve people, help people. So attitude and aptitude to take the time to learn the job and do the job the right way. If I can get those two things, I don't care how much education they have, we can teach them the job. But if you have a good attitude and you like working with people, we can teach you the rest. So.
And do volunteers undergo the same hiring procedures as maybe full-time?
No, at least not in my department.
Okay.
We're civil service. So to become full-time, you got to be at least 19 years old. You have to take the civil service test, which is put out by the state, and then you basically get on a waiting list, and through attrition as folks retire or we add personnel to the department, that's how you would get hired full-time. A lot of the call department people, which are part-timers for us, we can hire them at 18, and they can start working part-time with us. We can get them training and coach them along to take the tests and everything. We get to know them, they get to know the fire service, and a lot of our call department guys are basically waiting to get on full-time.
So they fill out that application process and now they're hired.
Yep.
What is that training process like to get them up to speed of what they do on a daily basis?
Okay, we do a 4-week in-house training program with them, but we also send them to the Massachusetts Fire Academy, or sometimes we send them to the Worcester Fire Academy, where they get between 10 and 12 weeks of basically intensive training on how to become a firefighter.
Is it an extensive training program?
It is. They actually do live burns. They learn about hazardous materials. They work cutting up cars, car fires. There's a certain aspect of testing whether they can be in dark, confined spaces, to make sure they're not claustrophobic. There's all kinds of training that goes through there that tests you as well, too. So.
And is that kind of like a weed out process of who can actually make it or not?
I think it's not intended to weed out, but certainly if somebody has those types of issues, I don't think this is the right type of job for them, because you spend, when you go into a fire, it's not like on TV. You can't see the flame a lot of time. It's just a black, not see anything, feel your way around. It's not
real
for
life.
everybody.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, we'll continue our conversation on firefighting in Massachusetts after the break. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about issues facing fire departments in the state of Massachusetts with Shrewsbury Fire Chief Jim Vona, who is also the president of the Fire Chiefs Association of Massachusetts. Now, people know fire departments respond to fires, but as first responders, the job has changed over the years. They also go to motor vehicle and other types of accidents, medical emergencies, natural disasters, hazardous material spills, and inspect buildings as well. Now, do all Massachusetts fire departments require firefighters to be EMTs or paramedics?
They're not required to. Certain departments do. If you're what they call a fire-based EMS system, you run an ambulance. The majority of those, you have to be a minimum of an EMT, but most are paramedic services. My department, we do have some paramedics, we do have some EMTs, but you have to be what's called an emergency first responder, which, you're able to run an AED machine and do CPR, basic first aid to stabilize, and, some medications.
What other specialized training is involved or maybe required?
There's some hazardous materials. You have to be at least operational, minimum operational. If it's a bigger call, we would call the hazardous materials the state team to come in. But I do have a few guys that are on the state team that are on the department. There's also technical rescue for, collapsed buildings, swift water rescue, for like bad emergencies, weather disasters, kind of thing like that. So we have to train for that. We do a lot of ice and water rescue training because we have a lot of shoreline, a number of ponds, and a very big lake in Lake Quinsigamon and Shrewsbury and Worcester. So we work with the dive team in Worcester, and we have district teams that come out and help as well.
You talked about that training process. How is that training funded?
Through the insurance industry, actually funds the Mass Fire Academy, and it's in their own best interest for us to put the fires out quick and be well trained. So it comes from the insurance industry.
Now, wildfires and wildland fires is a growing problem for the nation and the volunteer fire service as well. The costs of suppressing these fires are increasing as development pushes into wildlife and wildness areas. Are we seeing an increase in wildland fires in our state, or at least in your area?
Last year we did, and it was mostly attributed to the drought. We didn't get a lot of rain, as we all know, last summer. We had a lot of dried out wood on the ground. All it takes is a cigarette or even a lightning strike or something like that when it's very dry. That's how things can start.
Luckily, the latest report from the state is that we're all clear on that drought situation, so that is some good news there.
It is.
How does the state support local departments in fighting these fires? In the past few years, there has been a drop in fires and fire deaths across the state. Fire prevention, of course, and outreach seems to be working, but in the winter, fire seems to increase, right?
Yeah, that's mainly due to people turning on their heating, If you don't use your fireplace all summer, and then you start using it to heat your house, you have the chance of starting a fire. If you don't clean your chimney or you don't clean your furnace, you run the risk of not just fire, but carbon monoxide. So basically, when you turn on things that cause heat, you have the potential to cause fire as well.
And we've heard about those space heaters. A lot of people like to use those, especially now in the wintertime, even though today wasn't that cold and this past week hasn't been that cold, but it has been used and they do use them. Is that a big contributor to these fires as well?
Yes, a lot of the fatal fires in the state over the years have been attributed to these space heaters, which we always say give space heaters space and only use them if you're in the room. They're basically for temporary heat. But if somebody's heat goes out, then they start to use them for permanent heat, and then you fall asleep and nobody's monitoring. The wind blows or an animal goes by and knocks the curtains into the heater, and the next thing you know, you have a fire. So,
have you seen any space heater fires this year at your department so far?
Not at my department this year, but we have seen them in previous years.
What are some ways people can actively prevent fires in their homes and businesses? You said obviously cleaning your fireplace, maybe not using a space heater. Anything else that people should know about?
A lot of common sense stuff. Keep your kitchen stove clean. If you're cooking, especially a lot of older retired folks, they might wear loose clothing, like they might make their breakfast in their bathrobe and they're cooking their breakfast over an open flame and their robe catches on fire. So, things like that. You have a lot of glass top and electric stoves. Sometimes people put stuff down on top of them, a pizza box or something, and then they bump against the burner knob and they walk out of the room, and the next thing you know, they have most of the fires occur in the kitchen. So we also say stand by your pan when you're cooking. If you have a grease fire, it's usually because somebody walked away from it and wasn't watching it. So
in the summertime, a lot of grill fires as well, maybe propane?
Sometimes, yeah. We have a good amount of those, and again, that's usually attributed to not cleaning the grill. You have a buildup of grease, the grease catches on fire, and then the next thing you know, the fire department's here, the big red truck.
And there you are. What are the latest technical innovations that are helping fire departments in their mission?
Well, one of the changes I would say from when I started is we have a computer in basically every truck now. So they go to a fire, they know the address, you press a button on the address, and it'll bring you up all the information on when it was built, what it's made out of. It helps with like bigger businesses and stuff like that. You can get an idea of what's stored inside there. It's all at the touch of a screen. We have iPads basically in the trucks, and that helps basically make your plan on how you're going to fight the fire and know your hazards.
Okay, we'll have some final words when we return. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. In this program, we've been talking about issues facing fire departments in Massachusetts with Shrewsbury Fire Chief Jim Vona. Jim, if somebody is interested in becoming a firefighter, where can they go?
Well, a lot of the larger communities are civil service. If you go to the Department of Fire Services website, they have information on first becoming a firefighter, and it also has a link to civil service, or you can go right to civil service. Or you could do it the old-fashioned way, go right to the fire department in your hometown, and most fire departments these days also have a website where you could get information on how to become a firefighter.
All right, Jim, thank you, and thank you for watching at home. If you missed any of it, you can watch it in full at wwlp.com. From all of us here at 22 News, have a great day.